Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Top Beta Pie's The Best Podcast Series. Today, I'm here with CAPS-embedded therapists Kayla Douglas and Emily Powers.
Hey, Tony, thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
thanks for
Yeah,
having us,
hi.
Tony.
Yeah, so could you tell us more about yourselves and what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, Emily and I are the embedded therapists here in the College of Engineering. So, we only meet with engineering students. We are both clinical social workers,
Hmm.
and we provide therapy, both individual and group therapy, to students in the College of Engineering, both undergrad and grad level. I've been doing this since right before the pandemic, so winter 2020.
Hmm.
So I love spending time with my family and friends, going out, anything that's outside, adventurous. I really like anything that's like new, so creative things, whether that's like cooking, like artistic things. I'm really into active things like running, swimming, hiking, walking. Those are all things I also do for self care too, which
Right.
I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about.
Yes. All right. Great.
Yeah, in my spare time, I echo Kayla, friends, family. I'm spending time with my partner as well. Um, I've recently started doing some Orange Theory fitness classes, so I really
Oh,
like that. That's
okay.
been
Yeah.
beneficial for me to get like active and also helps my mental health as well. I love to karaoke. I think I've said that at every CAPS gathering, but anyone who knows me, they know I like karaoke.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really like to read for fun as well. I've picked that back up after grad school, so
Nice.
that's been
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, and Emily, how long have you been working with the College of Engineering?
Yeah, so this is my first semester
Oh,
in the
okay.
College of
Hmm.
Engineering, but last year I was a post MSW fellow at
Oh,
Central
okay.
CAPS in
All
the
right. Oh,
Union.
wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So, and then what has been your favorite parts about working as like therapist in the College of Engineering, FCAPS? Like,
Hmm. It's a really good question.
I can start this
Yeah, go for
time
yeah.
it.
because, like, just right off the bat, I love working with Kayla, having
Hmm.
somebody
Oh,
here. It's just really nice to have
couldn't agree
someone to
more.
consult with, like clinically, if there's something, because like CAPS really believes in like clinical consultation, not just making the decision by yourself, but like leaning on your colleagues as well. So it's really nice to have Kayla with me.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I think the personalities of everyone that I meet in different majors and COE has been really cool.
Hmm.
And also the outreach just out on the Grove. We recently had our positive chalking, like chalk the talk for
Oh,
suicide
yeah. I
prevention
think
and
I
awareness.
think I saw that before. Yeah.
Free
Uh,
donuts, apples,
yeah.
Yeah.
all the good stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I really love the outreach and tabling with that as well. And just being able to be more connected to students and understand like their world here on North Campus. That's been really rewarding for me.
All right, great. Yeah.
Yeah, and Emily stole all of mine. I couldn't agree.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. I couldn't agree more. Like, I love the fact that we get to
Hmm.
work together every day because I think we make a great team. We really
Hmm.
complement each other.
Hmm.
And, her and I spend a lot of time talking about just the respect and admiration we have for engineering students.
Hmm.
Hmm.
The work you all put into your studies and everything else that you're a part of, whether it's student orgs, um, you know, leadership opportunities, the internships. It's really cool to get to see who you all are as like people and not
Hmm.
just students. And I
Hmm.
think that's a privilege we have as the embedded therapists is we get to see that insight that, not
Hmm.
everybody else gets to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a
Hmm.
special part. I feel like I shared this at like other events too, like working at Central Caps, but even more so here in the College of Engineering. Like, I just feel really privileged to be able to do this work and
Hmm.
like clients sharing with me like about their world and to share those experiences like with them, like go through the motions of that, like academic stress, like how
Hmm.
can we work through this together? Like, how can this be like a safe space for you? And to take a break and just the last thing I'll say about that, I think, is just I really admire everyone who prioritizes their mental health
Mm.
amidst all the craziness of their schedule.
Hmm.
They're coming to see us and give us their time. So I
Hmm. Yeah.
think we can speak for one another that we really appreciate that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So, I want to see. Yeah. So, what are some like common stressors, especially for engineering students?
Well, I think kind of just to
Yeah.
speak, Tony, to the one that you
Hmm.
just mentioned, you all are like really high performers.
Hmm.
And, not only did you have to be like the best of the best students in high school to get into U of M's engineering program, but now we're talking about the cream of the crop in the College of
Hmm.
Engineering, like the
Hmm.
highest GPAs. And I think that just ups the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That really makes a perfect storm for perfectionism,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of imposter syndrome. Those are many of the things I think Emily and I see. High levels of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
because we all deal with anxiety, but the more responsibilities and things that we have going on and pressures that we put on
Mm-hmm.
ourselves or maybe others are putting on us, it's
Mhm.
just going to create more anxiety, and that can lead to all sorts of things. We see. I don't know if you want to speak more to that, Emily, but we see a lot of challenges with burnout, I think, because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I think I kind of want to come back to burnout as well, but just other things that we want to give light to as well. Like, I think Tony, you and I were like talking earlier about like the dissertation, like whatever like
Yeah.
program you're in, like are
Mm-hmm.
you a master's student, a PhD student, but also giving light to outside environmental factors as well, like cross cultural adjustment. We see a
Mm-hmm.
lot of international students who
Yes.
might feel like alone or isolated. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
not like I'm not speaking my mother tongue. I'm not like having provided like the food
Mm-hmm.
that really nourished my body growing up, like being here in Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
And everything just happening in the world right now, along with microaggressions and also the other isms that come with that,
Mm-hmm.
that can really
Yes.
affect academic performance and just overall well being.
Mm-hmm.
But Kayla did mention burnout, which is a huge one. I think we see a lot of
Yeah.
it. Um, I think it's helpful to give like a definition to it. Whenever I do like a coping with burnout presentation, I like to talk about like what exactly are we talking about? So we're referring to a state of emotional, physical, and/or mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress.
Mm-hmm.
So, more specifically, some causes could be like unreasonable work expectations that we put on ourselves or from like
Mm-hmm.
others, like professors, it can be family, loved ones, an increased workload. Like I hear of a lot of adjustment to a program. If you're a transfer student, you're adjusting to everything
Yeah.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Environmental and institutional factors, maybe a lack of self care because you're so busy trying to juggle everything else. And maybe boundary setting. Maybe you're not used to setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a factor of like this prolonged stress that leads to burnout. Absolutely.
Right. I think something I always find myself saying with students is you can be good at a lot of things, but you can only be great at a few. And that becomes increasingly hard the older that you get because you acquire all of these experiences and skills and opportunities to do more and to build your resume. But, you're only going to be able to be as good as the self care and taking care of yourself, expectations that you're setting for yourself on a daily basis. But, sleep, eating, moving, connecting. I always like to go to those four areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really great that in TBP, you all have each other
Yeah.
because that's a sense
Yeah.
of community
Yeah.
and connection too, and a place where you can hopefully hold each other accountable to doing those other things like getting sleep, which I hear from engineering students all the time. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
it's-
hear it was like you have sleep, social connections, or like eating. You
yeah.
you choose two out of the three. You don't get the third one. That's like that's
Which
very,
school ends up dominating
yeah.
that other
Uh-huh.
area, but I mean, you can't do anything if you're not taking care of
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that has to come
Definitely.
first, or you're not going to be very efficient or productive in anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, well, what do you guys suggest to people who like aren't getting enough sleep? So.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, I'm fine
Yeah.
with you starting.
Okay.
on it.
So I think I always like to ask people about like their bedtime routine. I know this
Uh-huh.
sometimes can sound like a little childish, but I think it's actually more of an adult thing than anything.
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
really important to have a consistent bedtime, a consistent wake time, um, and being able to, whether you're like struggling to get enough sleep or some people struggle and they're getting too much, but I think what we see most often is not enough. And I think the cycle for not getting enough sleep often starts with like, pulling one or two all-nighters or staying up a little
Oh yeah.
late. And then the
Yep.
next day,
Mhm.
it's hard to wake up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to catch up on sleep, but you can't really catch up on sleep. That's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of research that shows you can't actually just catch up on it. But it's the consistency that makes a big difference. So making sure that an hour before you're going to bed, you're starting that bedtime routine, making sure your electronics, anything that emits that blue light,
Mm-hmm.
is not being emitted into your eyes and your space
Mhm.
because that stops the production of melatonin in the brain.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that makes it really hard to fall asleep. And I
Okay.
mean, I know that's a tough thing to do for
Yeah.
most people.
Yeah,
You
uh-huh.
know, even myself included. I tell students that all the time. It's not an easy thing, and it takes discipline, but it helps with
Mhm.
making sure that you're able to fall asleep.
Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
So definitely the bedtime routine I think helps. I think making sure that you're waking up at the same time so that the next day it's not harder to fall asleep
Mhm.
Mhm.
when you're wanting to go to bed. I think those are sort of the keys. And, you know, the sleeping environment plays a big role too. You know, a dark room, of course,
Mhm.
temperature. They say it's better to sleep when it's cooler. Um, and, you know, I think just also being comfortable
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so there's this like thing that I hear I think I just recently heard about. It's called like revenge sleep procrastination.
Hmm.
Mm.
Have you guys heard about that
I have
or like heard
not.
that?
I've briefly heard about it or
Yeah,
I've seen on
so
social media.
so it's like when like you know that you were supposed to go to bed at a certain time
Ah,
and you can go to bed at that time. You have like nothing else to do. That doesn't yeah, there's like nothing to do, but you just don't go to bed. And this is where like the revenge part comes in because you feel like the entire day you have no time to yourself. And so
Mm.
I'm gonna sacrifice
oh,
2
yep.
hours of sleep that I should be getting just to have time for myself.
I have heard this a
Yeah, you heard
lot.
about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess like it's not. I guess like the name hasn't really been like coined,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think like people have called it like revenge sleep procrastination just because of that. So yeah, I think that has to do a lot with burnout also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I think especially for like me personally, I think if I'm really burned out, I tend to just go on my phone for like hours and then not
Mhm.
realize how much time I'm spending on my phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
hear all the time from people that, you know, they're struggling with like maintaining that like work productivity for a prolonged period of time.
hmm
But that's because humans are not supposed to sit down for hours on end without a break.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're not robots. Like
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can't expect yourself to do that. You need to get up and move and walk around.
hmm
We recommend a lot of the time for students to try the Pomodoro technique. I don't know
What's
if you've ever
that?
heard of
I don't know.
that.
Heard of that. What is
So
that? Yeah.
there's different forms of
Mhm.
it. In terms of like the time breakdown, but it's the idea that you work for X amount of time and then you take a break that's like reflective of that. So like I'll
Mhm.
start a lot of times with students and have them try like a 25 to 30-minute work session or sometimes even like 45-minute to an hour. And if you go like 25 to 30, take a 5-minute break after that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If you go like 45 to an hour, we're looking at more of a 10-15-minute break.
I see. Okay.
Because you know you need to give yourself a moment to like look away from the screen, like go to the bathroom, nourish your body, eat some food, get outside.
Stress bake.
It's stress bake, yeah, make pumpkin pie. um, but that's I think you know a really helpful way to
Yeah.
manage your time
Mhm.
more effectively so you can be efficient and not work like harder but smarter.
Mhm.
Mm.
Also, something I want to touch on is like self care. So, like, what can like engineering students do like on their own to like help care for themselves?
Yeah.
So.
So Kayla and I are sometimes called into like classrooms at times to give like self care presentations, but also
Mhm.
part of our like CAPS 101, like our spiel of like plugging ourselves. But we really recommend during those presentations to really check in with yourself. This can look a lot of different ways. Um, I really encourage like the folks that I see to really be aware like of some like activating factors or triggers or pressure points I like to call them like what
Mhm.
gets me like really feeling burnt out, like what's taking up most of my energy right now,
Mhm.
how am I feeling, just a mood check in. I think naming and being aware of how you're feeling can be really helpful to making a path forward of like I know I'm feeling like this now, I kind of know the cause, what do I want to do, what are some things that I could do that are within my control. So, after kind of being aware of these things, we really encourage individuals to observe these things non judgmentally because I think we sometimes get into those anxious thought spirals when we just let our minds run rampant rather than focusing on like what's in our control and also not judging ourselves for feeling human emotions. Like, I'm a bit
Yeah.
frustrated right now.
Mhm.
Oh, well, now I'm mad at myself because I'm mad. So that's not really helpful.
Yeah.
Part of that too is learning to detach yourself from unhelpful thoughts. We really like to use the THINK acronym. So the T stands for is the thought that I'm having right now. Like sometimes we have those like thoughts we're really down on ourselves. Inner critic is coming out. Is this a true statement about myself? this narrative that I'm feeding. Is this the H? Is this helpful or hurtful to me? The I is it inspirational or insulting? The N is this a necessary thought right now? Or could I place this, like, I'm feeling this way, I noticed that, but can I come back to this feeling or thought another time, at a better time?
Mhm.
And K, is it kind? Is this kind to me?
Yeah.
So I think this acronym can really help us, like, facilitate that check-in. How am I doing? It helps us, it prevents us from going down these, like, rapid anxious thought spirals as well.
Mhm.
And I think another thing too is engaging in some self-compassion strategies. So I think a lot of times we hear from clients in CoE that, like, there can a lot of comparisons, like, oh well, someone can focus way longer than me, like who I'm studying with, or like,
Yeah.
oh shoot, someone got like a higher score than me, but that's like not super helpful.
Yeah.
Like, it's an observation, but it's not like super helpful. So we really encourage, like, in any way you can, like, try to see some of those comparisons. Like,
Mhm.
you're on your own journey here. Everyone has their different strengths and also areas of growth. And really trying to accept yourself for where you are.
Mhm.
And where have I been? Like, I've gotten to the University of Michigan. Like, we really like to point that out to students. Like, you're the cream of the crop here.
Yeah.
And, like, it can be intimidating, but letting yourself make mistakes, learn from them, and also to celebrate the wins. I think a lot of the times I ask my clients, they're like, oh, like, I got like a 95 on the exam. I'm like, that is so exciting. Like, you were so worried about this. Like, I'm so proud of you. That's great. Like, did you celebrate? And it's like, no. It's just on to the next thing. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, getting yourself like a sweet treat, I think that goes a long way of, like, celebrating the small wins to keep pushing you forward to get that momentum.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think when things don't go well too, looking at that and like reframing it as a learning opportunity. This might sound like a little bit of a cheesy acronym, but FAIL. So first attempt in learning, FAIL. I always like to think about anytime we fail that it is really where that process of growing actually starts, because we're going to learn how to do it differently for the next time. And that's where it really sticks, is in sometimes those things that don't go as well as we would like them to. So
Yeah.
challenging yourself to reframe that thought when it does happen can be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oftentimes we can also look into ourselves and see what else we're good at, and also apply that too. Yeah. So
I think that kind of like speaks to the multiple identities that you have. Like, you're not just a student, like, and you're not just an engineering student, but you're also, I'm sure, a friend, a son, a daughter, a partner, all of those different identities that you can hold. And being able to tap into, whether it's a relationship identity, or maybe you're like the president of a student org, or maybe you play a sport, or you play an instrument. Having those other things that you're good at, I think I like to think about it as like buckets. So like, if your only bucket is a student in the College of Engineering and things aren't going so great, like, that bucket's going to get really, really heavy, and it's going to be really, really hard to carry it around all the time. But if you have other buckets that are like also full, or like, a little more evenly distributed with like, filling them up, like that role you have in TBP, doing this podcast. Like, this is a really cool thing you're doing, Tony,
Thank
and
you.
a huge strength. Like, you're doing a fantastic job with this. And
Thank
this
you.
is so important and so cool that you're giving this to that community of people that you're a part of. So, having those other things we can fall back on, so that when something isn't going so well, maybe in your classes, you know that you're much more than just a student.
Yeah.
So
And I think one other thing about the numbers piece is I think when we think about numbers, we think about measuring things a lot. And that's very outcome focused instead of process focused. And when we're always focused on performance and the outcome and how we're measuring things, it kind of takes away from that like process. It puts us in more of a fixed mindset than a growth mindset. So I think if you're able to make that shift on like not just like thinking about the other things that you're strong in, but also just the process of those things, and not maybe like the outcome or the title that you have or the achievements that you're getting, but the things that are happening and how it's changing you as a person. That's going to help you a lot.
Yeah.
Right, and then also I wanted to touch on like more about self-identity, especially in the College of Engineering. So like maybe for like underrepresented groups, so like
Mhm.
women or like underrepresented minorities, like how do you feel that like being a part of those identities like affects like especially like your self-confidence and your education?
I
Yeah.
identify as a Chinese, like Asian American woman.
Mhm.
So this idea of the model minority myth that where it
Mhm.
like smartness is inherent, that can be very damaging. I've heard that in
Mhm.
various situations with clients, like international folks, but also individuals who don't identify as international
Mhm.
students. Like this pressure to succeed. Like I have to
Mhm.
succeed. There's no other option. It creates a lot of that prolonged stress we were talking about, and having these marginalized identities, having a certain expectation to overachieve, to be
Mhm.
successful. That can be really
Mhm.
an additional heavy stressor,
Yeah.
which
Uh-huh.
causes mental health, and if it goes further, it can affect physical health as well.
Mhm.
So while it's great to lean into identities, like we really love talking about the positives of identity, there's also these things that can inhibit our own personal success or how we view ourselves. So
Mhm.
I kind of hope that answers your
Yeah,
question a
okay,
little
thank
bit.
you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I know that was more like the difficult question. So,
No,
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 it's a
no.
yeah.
really good
It's a
Yeah.
great
question.
So,
question. Yeah.
And I think an important one to bring up
yeah.
too,
Mhm.
because when you're in a space where you're not seeing people that look like you,
Hmm.
it can feel really isolating.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of marginalized identities that experience that in the
Mhm.
College of Engineering,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
women specifically.
Hmm.
Um, I think experience that a lot. I hear from so many female clients that they are maybe the only female in their class, or
Mhm.
maybe they're
Yeah,
the
I've heard
only
that too.
female in their
Yeah.
lab.
Yeah,
And
or like
Yeah.
they're the only like female in their internship. Yeah,
yeah,
I hear that a
Right.
lot.
Right.
a
So, yeah.
ton. And that's
So,
hard.
yeah.
And I
Uh-huh.
mean, I
Yeah.
think that makes you feel really alone
Mhm.
when you're in that experience. So,
Yeah.
Emily and I actually have offered a women in STEM group, and we'll be offering it in the
Mm.
winter again.
Okay. All
So, if
right.
anyone's ever interested in that, we think it would be a really great space to come
Mhm.
together in community and also provide support for one another.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Oh, sorry.
Oh
Are you
no, you're
continuing?
fine.
Yeah.
Just in academic spaces, I've learned
Mhm.
like over the years, like personally, and also like seeing it through like clients and like experiences with coworkers, that connection piece is so important. So I think like having a space um like the women in STEM group, like finding people who have similar experiences, that can be just such a powerful thing to hear that, to be reassured like I'm not dealing with this alone. Like there's a place of understanding for me.
Mhm. Yeah.
I talk a
Mhm.
lot about places of support versus understanding. You can find easier places of support, but places of understanding, like that's a really special thing.
Mhm.
So with identity being such like a talked about thing nowadays, as it should,
Mhm.
finding that connection, your places of support and understanding, that's crucial,
Mhm.
of like taking care of yourself and like thriving in intense environments like
Mhm.
this.
Great. Yeah. So, thank you too so much for coming in today. How can people, like contact you too? Right.
Best way to contact us is to email us at caps-engine, so CAPS-ENGIN at umich.edu,
Mhm.
and we'll get back to you.
Mhm. Great. And I'll put that on the screen too. So
Sweet.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Again, thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Emily, for coming in today. I know you guys are really busy, so I really appreciate your time. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, thank
So
you so
yeah.
much.
yeah, and
This
Mhm.
was
thanks
an
for
honor.
Yeah. Thank you.
prioritizing this. We feel very
Mhm.
humbled to get to be
Yeah.
here and
Yeah. Thank you.
speak about
Mhm.
mental health. It's a big thing.
Yep.
So
It's important.
All right. Well,
great job, Tony. Thank
thank you.
you.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, guys. All right. Yeah. Bye.